All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show and the third hour of the show. This third hour is tremendous. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the bestest of best news coming your way. Just after the 11:30 news, I have the bestest of best news for those of you in Quebec that may possibly have an issue or two with the current provincial government. So stay tuned for that. In about 15 minutes' time, the good folks at St. Viator Bagel are going to join us. We're going to talk about wood-burning ovens and making a great bagel coming up in just a bit of time. But we begin this hour of the program with a man who is very clearly after my heart because he's going hard on the Olympic Stadium and a lack of transparency over the Big O's new roof costs. Now, it was on February 5th that the tourism minister announced that they would go ahead with a new roof for the Big O, $873 million worth. And now the Quebec government being urged to show the studies, show the data, show the details on the how and why of that cost. Nicolas Gagnon is that man asking those questions. He's from the Quebec chapter of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Nicolas, welcome back to the program.
Hi, sir. How's it going?
I'm doing great. We are aligned on this issue, sir. We are aligned. We both want answers, and I'm frustrated to no end on how the Quebec government is handling this. Tell me about your frustrations. Why are you frustrated over the Big O?
Well, it's definitely the lack of transparency that is the most frustrating, and most importantly, what we learned last week during the consideration of the estimate that happened at the National Assembly. I think it's worth doing a recap about what is going on with the Big O because on February 5th, we had quite an announcement. They said that they would be building a new rooftop for the stadium up to $870 million, and they also promoted a lot of different perks about this new rooftop. Has that the fact that it would be doubling the number in terms of economic returns. We would be going from $68 million a year to $150 million a year. It would triple the number of events on an annual basis in the Olympic Stadium. It would also double the number of visitors from 1 million to 2 million just for a new roof. Actually, this new roof is so magical that at this point we should just call it Hogwarts. But the thing is, it doesn't actually stop there because at that time we actually asked for the government to provide us with any document that would actually justify the spending. And yet, despite the fact that we submitted a lot of different access to information process, we have not received any documents. But what happened last week was quite frustrating because the economy minister, Mr. Pierre Fitzgibbon, was questioned many times by the MNA of the official opposition, Madame Philomena Roti, about the cost of the new roof. And here's what we learned. The first thing is, inevitably, as we all knew, there will be additional costs. There will be overcosts in accordance with the renovations for the roof because there will be some work to be done inside. That has been confirmed by Pierre Fitzgibbon. So we already know that the figures that were presented to us approximately 2 months ago is already meaningless. But the worst part is that afterward he came up and said, well, there's no doubt that a lot of work has been done. They didn't invent these figures, but I haven't seen the documents. So we have testimony from the Minister of the Economy that he has not seen the economic studies himself. Now, the big problem is the Ministry of Tourism is not providing those documents. The Minister of Economy has not seen those documents. And yet every ATIP that we have submitted, even those that were submitted by the official opposition, has come up empty. So we're really wondering at this point, yes, there's a big lack of transparency, but the other question that I'm currently asking myself is, do those economic studies actually exist? Because you cannot come up to say, okay, let's spend $870 million on a new stadium, say it's going to double the number of people, it's going to increase the economic return and all of that, and not come up with some kind of plan to actually show how on what this kind of information is based. And sadly, to this day, we have no information at all. We know that they're going to go forward one way or another with the renovation, but still, I'm very sure that every taxpayer that are going to pay for that the stadium, the people living in Montreal and outside of Montreal do want some answers.
Nicolas, just for our listeners, when you said ATIF, that's access to information request, right? That's what we're talking about here?
Exactly.
Okay, so we're with Nicolas Gagnon from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. We're talking about the Big O, lack of transparency there. Nicolas, with everything you just mentioned here, right? The lack of transparency regarding the new roof and the cost there and the supposed benefits. does it also make you question the numbers the government throws out about demolition costs? Because they're adamant it's $2 billion to demolish the Big O. And I don't know if we've seen any concrete numbers to back up those claims. Do you question that as well?
Oh, indeed, because we all know that the only study that has ever been made about the cost of dismantling the whole stadium was made in 2003. It was made almost a generation ago. And the thing is, this document that was provided, through an access to information process, this document was very short. It was basically a small Excel spreadsheet, and there was very few breakdown of the real cost. And it's not just about the cost of the destruction that is quite questioning. It's also the cost of the renovation itself. There was actually a document, an analysis that was published last month in La Presse that was showing that if the Quebec government would have chose to go for a roofless stadium instead of just changing the whole thing, it would have cost 1/10 of the cost that we're projecting for the whole replacement. So the thing is, there was different other ways for the government to go forward with the renovation in a way that it would save taxpayers money, and he chose not to go in that direction. We definitely want to know why. We also want to know why they're still bringing the whole numbers about the dismantlement of the stadium every time we question the numbers regarding the renovation. So all of that is very questioning, and so far we have no real numbers for the dismantlement. We have no numbers for the renovation. We have no real numbers about the projection that are going to be bringing those economic returns to life. So yes, the taxpayers are currently in the blind, and it's not normal. We're talking about almost $1 billion investment, and if there's one thing we know for sure with the Olympic Stadium and that we're all very used to is the overcost. Actually, the Olympic Stadium has quite an history with overcosts. We fear that to happen a second time with the renovation, and the fact that the government is keeping us in the blind is certainly not helping.
Where does this rank? You know, there's always some opaqueness, a lack of transparency on any government project. I mean, but where does this rank overall, in your estimation, when it comes to government projects and a lack of answers?
Well, if we say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, I would say, not transparent at all, and 10 being very transparent, I would say that Quebec government is pretty much ranking around 1 or 2 at this point, because the only information that they have provided so far, with all the different requests that we have submitted, that we know that other submitted as well, is basically just old information that has been pretty much roaming around in some archive from the government, such as the dismantle costs. So really, this is quite infuriating, and this is why we're pressuring the government to actually deliver those studies before they go forward with the whole renovation. And we believe that there should be a public inquiry about it to actually avoid any overcost in the project.
Listen, if the government won't do it, would your group, would the Canadian Taxpayers Federation be willing to do your own studies? Talk to, if the government won't come up with current demolition or deconstruction costs, do you think it would be in maybe your group's best interest to fund a study, talk to demolition, deconstruction people, and come to the table with your own figures?
That's actually a good question. I don't think that we necessarily have the means to fund this kind of study. We definitely would like to actually see if that's possible for us. I think that the main responsibility in that case is if it's for the government to actually do their own homework, because they're about to spend taxpayers' money. We're not. I'm pretty sure that this kind of study should have been provided way before the announcement was done, or at least at the very moment that the announcement was done. So the fact that we're still running after the numbers is a very bad indicator for us. If we would have the means to fund this kind of study, I think that we would do it. I'm pretty sure it's costing in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we know for sure that this is a kind of study that the government should have done before announcing the multi-million dollars investment.
What do you say to someone, and maybe it's someone at the government, who says, you know what, we don't have the greatest facilities in Quebec. We need to improve our facilities. Olympic Stadium is part of that. And we're going to spend this money because we deserve better facilities in Quebec. What do you say to that?
Well, we definitely deserve better facilities in Quebec. The big problem with the Olympic Stadium is that to this point it's still very much empty. And even if you renovate the whole the rooftop of the stadium, there's still a lot of renovation that still needs to be done inside. And yet there's no sports team that has chosen this place as a home for now. I think that this kind of renovation, this kind of project should not be just the burden of taxpayers. We know that there's many private companies that are very much invested in the Olympic Stadium, such as the Desjardins Caisse, that have their own some of their offices in the tower. So there would be some ways for the government to actually choose to partnership with a private firm to be able to take care of those kind of infrastructures, such as the Olympic Stadium. We do care about this symbol, but it should not come blindly from the pocket of taxpayers. And clearly, there's opportunities for the government to do this kind of investment in partnership with private companies that are also looking up to take care of those infrastructures as well.
Nicolas, we got to leave it there. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome, sir.
Nicolas Gagnon is from the Quebec chapter of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation.